Hello, welcome to Integrated Wellness with Jenny. I am Jenny and I am really excited you're here. I am thrilled that you want to hear more about this wellness, this coaching business that I have created. It has been a labor of love. I am somebody who is deeply passionate about showing up for other people just in every part of my life, from motherhood to nonprofit work to stewarding a pantry in my front yard. If there is a way to pour love in this world, I am 100% here for it. This business, this coaching business, is the place where I get to really pour it directly into other people, which is why I'm so excited you're here. I first journeyed into helping other people as a kid. I had a disabled parent who I started taking care of at a very young age. And unfortunately, he had been just horrifically abused as a child and did not have a tremendous skill set and some narcissistic tendencies. So my childhood was not idyllic, to say the least. My mother had also come from a background where she did not have the most kind, loving, and attentive parents. There was some degree of neglect. And so my parents both did the best they could. And my father's best looked like really struggling. He has a lot of psychiatric disease. He struggles to stay in this reality. And that made it really hard for him to show up for his career and to earn a paycheck. My mother was busy taking care of him and taking care of us. And so money was tight growing up. So there were these multiple levels of shame in terms of the poverty, which nobody wanted to call it what it was. But when you don't have enough food to eat and you're living in some food scarcity and living in general scarcity, that is poverty. There's also the layer of shame of having a parent with a mental illness. There's still a lot of stigma around mental illness today. And so I grew up carrying all of the shame as my birthright. I can remember being an adult and still feeling deeply uncomfortable in restaurants with napkins, like cloth napkins. I just didn't feel worthy of being in those spaces because of where I came from growing up. And just spending lots and lots of time educating myself, rising up through the ranks of class on paper, but not ever feeling like I belonged in the places that I was circling up to. So I started working in healthcare really young. Right out of high school, I became a volunteer EMT, and then I worked as an ER tech. And from there, I got accepted into Yale after graduating at the top of my class as an undergrad. I mean, I hustled my way out of poverty. I knew that was my ticket out. And I deeply applied myself because I thought if I could achieve all of that material success, that I would feel better about myself and that life would be better and it would be easier. And so I got accepted to Yale, and I went to Yale for PA school, and I became a physician assistant, and I got a reasonably high paying job for someone my age. And I was able to buy a house and escape an abusive marriage, because patterns repeat until we learn and grow. And none of that filled the emptiness inside me. And none of that filled up my cup of worthiness. And once I got out of the abusive relationship I was in, I became an endurance athlete, and I would run for hours and hours and hours. We are talking all day. hours on end to manage my anxiety and my feelings of just feeling unsafe. And meanwhile, I was excelling in my workplace and at times running circles around my coworkers because I knew how to apply myself and how to hustle. And that system seemed to work pretty well in terms of regulating my nervous system right up until I got pregnant, and I had 2 surprise pregnancies. And when I had 2 small people to manage, I could not go run for hours on end in the woods or ride my bike for hours on end or exercise to the point of regulating my nervous system. And so it just so happened that I was also finding, having transitioned into outpatient practice and taking care of my own patients, that I did not feel really adequately equipped to manage the problems that my patients were coming to see me for. I was working in an outpatient surgical practice, primarily managing bariatric patients, which means patients who are looking to lose weight, often through surgery. And people were coming in to see me, and they had some capital T trauma that was related to the weight issues. And I learned really quickly that it was not a knowledge deficit problem. It was a multiple layers of barriers to showing up for themselves. And my task became, how do we identify those barriers and how do we remove them? So I quickly decided that I need to expand my tool belt. And I became a certified personal trainer through the National Academy of Sports Medicine. Then I became a certified weight loss specialist and a certified behavior change specialist, and had a certification in nutrition, all still through the National Academy of Sports Medicine. And when those tools still didn't give me the capacity to help every person who walked through the door, I became a certified crisis counselor, because I was finding that people often were showing up in crisis, and when they were losing weight, that was potentially triggering old memories and changing the dynamics in people's relationships. People would have these surgeries and they'd finally show up for themselves, and people were used to them not showing up for themselves and serving everybody else. So when they finally took the opportunity to show up well for themselves, people who maybe were not the healthiest options to be around were certainly showing up with pushback. So realizing that I needed more of a skill set to be able to elegantly manage those situations and to be able to assist anybody. And it was when I took the crisis counseling course that I learned about motivational interviewing, which is helping people identify what they want, where they are in terms of the stages of change, right? Am I ambivalent about it? Do I really want it? And if I do want it, how do I convince myself to move in that direction? So it's more of a form of helping somebody else figure out what they want and make decisions than telling somebody what to do, which is a much more effective way to get somebody to change behavior, and something I certainly did not learn about in medical school. But during the crisis counseling certification training, I had to take a clinical stress management course. And as part of the course, you practice the strategies on yourself. And that is when I started a breathwork and meditation practice, which was really timely because I had the 2 small children who were taking up a lot of my time and energy and literally living off my life force. And I couldn't show up for myself the way I was used to. I didn't have hours on end regulate my nervous system. And so what I started doing is, when I was trying to get them to nap during the day, I would do my breathwork and meditation strategies. And I found that it not only helped regulate my nervous system, but by them snuggling up against me, it helped regulate their nervous systems. And then they would nap much more easily. And what happened is I noticed a definite difference in how I felt and how I functioned and my ability to concentrate, my ability to show up for my patients. And deeper than that, I started having some really strange things happen. I started noticing tingling in my hands when I was doing breath work and meditation. And then that tingling in my hands would start to show up when I was deeply engaged with my patients. So when I was feeling really connected to my patients and listening empathetically, the hand tingling would start. And occasionally I would almost feel a presence with me, sort of giving me information on what patients needed. And I, over time, started to find more and more patients that were being guided to come see me by the universe. And I was becoming more and more of a vessel to communicate messages that patients had asked for. And so somebody would come to see me feeling like they need to make a career change. And then that would come up during their visit, just from me listening and being a mirror. And I would just tingle all over, right? And have like this confirmation that the patient is receiving the message that they are meant to hear. And there was a palpable energy in the room. And it wasn't happening all the time, but it was happening enough that I could recognize this was a new pattern. The thing is that the breathwork and meditation was not doing it for me completely, in terms of I was still having anxiety about having anxiety, partly due to the fact that having small children keeps you from sleeping really well, and partly due to the fact that I did not realize I had a lot of air in my constitution and probably wasn't eating enough. But regardless, I tried therapy. I tried EMDR, which is a specialized type of therapy where you actually can rewire trauma in your brain to fix your body's response to trauma. So you're not having as much of a physical sensation, because I was noticing these patterns in my body, doing lots of yoga, doing lots of breath work, doing meditation. I could feel the places that I was carrying old trauma in my body. So I tried EMDR. It helped some. It did not help as much as I would have liked it to. And it was also really expensive, and it did not feel like a warm, safe container. So then when I ended up, quite by accident, in my first Kundalini yoga class, I found that container to feel held, to feel connected. And I absolutely knew deep to my core that I wanted more of it. The teacher said that she was taking the entire summer off. I could not find another Kundalini teacher in my area. And so I ended up at Yoga Farm Ithaca becoming a Kundalini yoga teacher. So just signing up for Kundalini yoga teacher training. And it was in that training that I discovered Kim Beekman and her inner alignment program. And the inner alignment was like my missing puzzle piece. It was an opportunity for me to really address the deeper levels of trauma and to rewire my brain so that I was not repeating old patterns. So I wasn't having these old thoughts circulating. I wasn't feeling as triggered. And I can remember my first meeting with Kim Beekman, with her telling me that my high-paying corporate job, where I was being absolutely run into the ground, that we could get to a point where that was not triggering. And me basically telling her that working there was deeply insulting to my soul. And her saying, well, that's great, because then we'll be able to tell that the program's working. And telling me that we were going to get to a place where even being in that get run into the ground corporate structure where you are unseen, unheard, and unappreciated, that we're going to get to the point where it feels like chocolate or vanilla in terms of staying or leaving. And I was pretty outraged internally, but I trusted her because my inner guidance system was totally on board with joining her program. And we absolutely did. We got to the point where it was chocolate or vanilla, the staying or leaving. And I would have been okay staying because I knew my tools would work and that I could function and I could show up well, and just feeling that sense of having the universe have my back. And then the universe nudged me out, where it was very clear that there were other places I was supposed to be, namely here doing this work. So that has been my journey with inner alignment. I went from really being run into the ground and chronically exhausted in a corporate job, wanting to show up well for my patients, finding the system I was in being a barrier, and feeling like I did not have an out because I would not be able to generate the amount of income for my family that I was in any other capacity. And since leaving, I was offered a nonprofit consulting job that paid slightly more than what I was making as a corporate healthcare provider. And essentially every passion that I have had, everything I really enjoy doing that I pour myself into, I have had a job offer in. So really what inner alignment has given me through the initial level 1 and then learning to coach as a level 2 is how to create that sense of safety and grounding for myself, where I am unshakably centered and anchored in my truth, and also how to live in a state of abundance and to not live in a state of fear or scarcity, but rather lean into the abundance that's around me, and to be able to co-create with the universe all of my deepest longings. And now that I have experienced that in my own life, and I have seen the daily miracles. I mean, I run a little free pantry in my front yard that there is no convincing me that miracles are not possible. I see it every day. I have an empty box that magically gets filled with food every day to feed my neighbors. So just if it is hard for you to see the miraculousness in everyday living, just come hang out with me for a day. And I will open your eyes to all of the wonders that can be when you are just open to receiving. Because I think that is where our culture gets stuck. We put our prayers and our wants and our hopes and our dreams out into the world, but we are so busy that we are not listening for our prayers to be answered. We're not listening for things to work out for us. So if you're here, I hope it's because you're ready to receive. You're ready to receive all of the unconditional love and abundance and goodness that is waiting for you on the other side of this work. Because this is really about unlocking the version of you you've been waiting for, and showing up as your favorite self to live the life that you've been longing for. And I am so excited to be a part of this journey with you. And I hope that you reach out to connect so that we can make your inner longings a reality. So much love for you. So grateful for you. Have an amazing day.